Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown.
My knee fell asleep. I'm Matthew. How are you?
Matthew's knee fell asleep.
How's everybody doing today?
They're probably more awake than you. You look like you're drooping a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The COVID doesn't let go. It really doesn't.
It does not.
Yeah.
Next show, I'll be 100% better.
You'll be, as you say, 10 out of 10.
I'll be 10 out of 10.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
Maple Batalia, a 19-year-old college student studying health sciences, was also a working model and actress and loved to paint. On the night of September 28, 2011, after a late-night study session at Simon Fraser University's Surrey campus, she was shot and attacked with a knife in a parking lot as she left the campus library. The savage nature of the attack left her with multiple gunshot wounds and severe stab wounds to her head. Despite efforts to save her, Maple succumbed to her injuries at Royal Columbian Hospital in New Westminster. Suspicion immediately fell on Maple's ex-boyfriend, Gurjinder Dhaliwal, with whom she'd broken up a month before. Dhaliwal refused to leave Maple alone and obsessively contacted her since their breakup, and he was known to have been violent with her. Days before her murder, Dhaliwal had violently confronted Maple, and police became involved, telling him to stay away. Dhaliwal claimed innocence after Maple's slaying, but his relationship with his friend, Gursimar, Bedi, proved to be his undoing. This is Dark Poutine episode 327, Hopes Crushed, the Murder of Maple Batalia. Maple Batalia was born on the 4th of March 1992 in Mumbai, India, to parents Harkirat Harry Batalia and Sarbjeet Batalia. Maple was the youngest of three and had one older sister named Rosaline. Her father chose the name Maple after falling in love with the maple leaves during an autumn visit to North America as they made plans to emigrate. Maple's dad, Harry, later told Global News that the name Maple also created a connection between their new home and their old one. Maple trees are rare in India and are only found in Kashmir.
Such a good Canadian name for a girl, Maple. I love it.
Maple is a pretty name.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
And you look at her, you're like, she looks like Maple.
She really does.
She was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's such a good name.
Yeah, she looked like she was a sweet person.
Yeah, she does.
Her family doted on Maple, seeing her as the rare jewel of their family. She was a joy to them, and in several interviews, her father recalled with a smile how on many occasions Maple made them all laugh. She was known for her laugh and her infinite positivity. The Batalia family of Punjabi heritage immigrated to Canada when Maple was young, seeking better opportunities for their daughters. Growing up in Canada, Maple's family connected closely to their Punjabi roots while embracing a more progressive approach to raising their daughters. As her sister Rosaline explained, they had a, quote, very non-traditional household, end quote, compared to other families in their community. Maple's friend Karen Kang told Oxygen Channel documentary producers, quote, she was allowed to go outside, play with boys, and just kind of be free, which is kind of taboo for our culture, end quote.
Yeah, I think for some families it is, for others not. I think most Canadians listening to this show probably have friends, family, or neighbors or coworkers who are from India. India represents the largest country of origin of new Canadians. Did you know that?
Yes, it does.
2022, I think the last stats is 119,000 people. The next highest, but much lower, were the country of origin was China at 32,000. And Mike, could you just guess, the third without looking it up?
The third largest without looking it up. I'm going to say in 2022, I am going to say the UK.
Afghanistan.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a surprise for me. UK isn't even in the top 10.
Oh, well. Shows me what I know about demographics.
Yeah, our population growth is completely driven by immigration.
Yeah. It seems so, yep.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I think the U.S. is 0.3 per population immigrations. Ours is like 1.2 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
From a young age, Maple demonstrated ambition and charisma. Her sister Rosaline recalled, growing up, people were amazed at how beautiful and charismatic she was. You would notice when Maple walked into a room, end quote. Maple's aspirations were diverse and far-reaching, as Karen Kang mentioned. Quote, she was like, I want to be a doctor. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a model. I want to be in movies. She always had big dreams, end quote. Maple was creative and loved making silly video skits with friends. She loved acting. Maple's dreams began to materialize early in her life. At 14, she secured her first runway modeling gig and later participated in Vancouver Fashion Week. She also enrolled in acting school and obtained an agent, taking steps toward her Hollywood aspirations. Maple's friend, Bladish Thierra, later told Global, quote, being East Indian, she still decided to go do modeling. And I feel like a lot of people in our community can be a little closed-minded that we shouldn't be wearing revealing clothing. We shouldn't be doing certain things. She was the type of person that didn't care. She wanted to do it, she went and did it, end quote. When she was 14, Maple met Gurjinder Dhaliwal, who everyone called Gary. They were the same age and met at a basketball event. They were friends at first, but soon they were inseparable. Their families became close and overjoyed at what they thought was a good match. Their mothers became best friends. Sarbjeet, Maple's mom, later told Global News that she loved Gary like a son. Gary was an attentive boyfriend, sometimes sending flowers or chocolates to Maple at home. Maple was an attractive girl who received a lot of attention, especially as she started her modeling and acting pursuits. This did not sit well with Gary Dhaliwal, who was overly possessive of Maple. Friends reported that Gary displayed jealous and controlling behavior, which unfortunately escalated over time. He would put Maple down and tell her she wasn't camera ready and that she was not pretty enough to be a film and TV actor or model. Maple's family noticed she had become withdrawn, quiet, and distant during her relationship with Gary. He seemed to want to dominate her time, demanding that she spend time with him rather than her family or friends. She became quiet and sullen, not her usual bubbly self. Gary had also fallen in with an unsavory crowd, becoming involved with the drug trade in Surrey. Surrey, as many of you know, has had a bad reputation as a crime-ridden city for some time, mostly due to the illicit drug trade. Surrey has become a hub for illicit drug trafficking and distribution. Large cities like Surrey have long been epicenters for drug activity, and Surrey is rapidly joining their ranks. The opioid crisis, including heroin and other opiates, has reached epidemic proportions in the area, affecting people from all walks of life regardless of age, gender, social class, or ethnicity. Organized crime groups, including gangs with ties to international cartels, play a major role in Surrey's drug trade. These groups often exploit the Port of Vancouver to smuggle drugs into Canada, using it as a transshipment point for narcotics destined for other countries like Australia and New Zealand. The involvement of young men and boys like Gary Dhaliwal in Surrey's drug trade is part of a broader trend of gang activity in the region. Many of these individuals are recruited by established criminal organizations drawn by the promise of quick money and status. They often serve various roles in the drug distribution chain, from street-level dealing to more sophisticated operations, including cross-border smuggling and money laundering.
And this is your old hood.
Yes, it definitely is my old hood. I mean, where this whole thing took place was in Whalley.
Yeah, not far from you at all.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're safely in Abbotsford.
No, it's Langley. I am safely in Langley. I love it here. I love Langley.
Langley's great.
It is. It's a really nice little city.
And to be honest, I did not like Surrey either. I just didn't like where I was. Law enforcement agencies have been working to combat the issues of crime in Surrey, with many operations leading to significant drug seizures and arrests. However, the Surrey drug trade continues to be a complex and evolving problem, with law enforcement facing ongoing challenges in addressing the involvement of various criminal groups. Regardless of Gary's involvement in illegal activities, Maple continued moving forward with her life. She attended Enver Creek Secondary School in Surrey. Just before she graduated in 2009, Maple looked forward to moving on with her life. She wrote in her high school yearbook, "One milestone down, thousands more to be found. At this moment, I feel pretty accomplished. I've managed to gain support from my parents, surround myself with loved ones, and let me be myself. I've found my role models, and hopefully I will follow in their steps and leave my own mark. 10 years from now, I hope someone can look up to me and respect and admire the choices I have made to make my dreams into my reality. I want to be self-made. I don't want to be known for someone else's accomplishments. I want to accomplish my own." Their school graduation trip was to Cuba. Both Gary and Maple went. Friends later recalled a strange incident. There were signs that Maple's friends may have missed, indicating she was being physically harmed. During their graduation trip to Cuba, Maple showed up to a night event wearing sunglasses, which was unusual given the darkness. Her boyfriend Gary was also wearing sunglasses. At the time, her friends did not understand the significance and were more focused on being upset that Maple had missed out on activities with them. Months later, Maple revealed what had actually occurred that night. According to her friend Benicia, Maple had received a text message from a male coworker at Staples where she worked part-time. The text was work-related, but when Gary saw this message, he reacted violently and gave Maple a black eye.
Just men like this are such pathetic losers.
She was not a big person.
No.
She was not a threat to
And even if she
Gary
was,
at all.
It's like, what kind of a man? It's just...
somebody who feels very badly about themselves.
Yeah.
So badly about himself that he has to
hurt other people
to feel better.
Just pathetic.
This incident highlights how victims of domestic abuse may try to hide their injuries, and how even close friends can miss warning signs if they are not aware of what to look for. The sunglasses at night were an unusual behavior that, in hindsight, could have been a red flag indicating Maple was concealing physical abuse. Several critical indicators of hidden domestic abuse are unexplained injuries, frequent absences from work or social events, sudden changes in behavior or appearance, and signs of fear or anxiety around their partner. Maple's family later said that one reason she didn't ask for help or tell them what was going on with Gary was her independence and pride in handling everything herself. As with many abusive relationships, Gary and Maple broke up and reconciled several times. Gary always promised to do better, and Maple would take him back even after an acknowledged infidelity. After high school, Maple enrolled at Simon Fraser University, SFU, in Surrey, British Columbia, pursuing a degree in health sciences to become a doctor. While at SFU, she impressively balanced her academic pursuits with her burgeoning careers in modeling and acting. She confided in her family that she would continue studying to become a doctor, but if her acting took off, that would take a back seat. She continued dating Gary Dhaliwal. Both lived at home with their respective parents. Maple's acting career gained momentum during this time. She landed a role in the film Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, and was cast in a kissing scene for a popular CW series. For Oxygen, her friend Karen Kang recalled the excitement of attending the movie premiere. Quote, Maple and I and a few friends went to see the premiere, and we sat with the crowd, and during her parts we were cheering, and she had tears in her eyes. She couldn't believe that she was on the screen, so it was surreal, end quote.
That must have been such an incredible moment for her, and God, I wish she was still here, but I'm so happy that in her short life she got a chance of something that cool.
Yeah.
Right? That moment of happiness.
It's fun. I mean, it's fun seeing your name in the credits, even when your face isn't on the screen. Because I've had that experience a number of times, and it's like, oh, there I am.
There I am.
Yeah, that's really fun.
In the summer of 2011, Maple became aware that Gary had again been cheating on her with another girl. She was furious, especially as he'd been jealous if anyone so much as glanced her way, and he promised her he would be faithful after his last dalliance. Maple broke up with Gary in mid-August, and he was livid. According to RCMP investigator Adam McIntosh, who later got a warrant for and read the text messages between the couple, the breakup was rough. Maple finally stood up for herself after some particularly nasty messages from Gary. She wrote, quote, "You talk to me like this? We're done," end quote. Gary's ominous response was, quote, "You're acting like my enemy. You don't want to be my enemy," end quote. Gary was not willing to let Maple go. He'd controlled her for nearly 5 years, and he would not take no for an answer. He texted and called Maple at all hours, day and night. She received thousands of texts from him and sometimes hundreds of calls from him in a day between the breakup and the date of her death. Her friends suggested that Maple change her number, but she refused, saying that the action might trigger a dangerous reaction. She was afraid for herself and her family. Gary would also show up unannounced when Maple was out with friends. One evening, Maple and her friends enjoyed a night out at a club in Surrey. As the night ended and they were leaving the venue, Gary unexpectedly arrived in his Pathfinder. He confronted the group as they were exiting the club. During this confrontation, Gary became aggressive and spat on one of Maple's male companions, whom he suspected was romantically involved with her.
This guy is just like a dangerous man baby. Like there's nothing redeemable about this guy.
No. Nope. No, it's kind of... I was looking for something good about this person.
No, it's not going to happen.
Struggled.
Yeah, and
coming up with it.
If you knew him, don't bother calling in to tell us.
Yeah, we don't care. I've had that a few times, which is interesting. Like people saying, well, blah, blah, blah. And it's like...
You're like, he was a murderer.
You know who's not calling us and telling us different things? Victims' families.
Exactly.
It has happened, but it's very, very rare. Domestic abusers often demonstrate a strong reluctance to relinquish control over their victims, even after the relationship has ended. This behavior stems from their deep-seated need for power and dominance. The period following a victim's attempt to leave is particularly dangerous, with women facing a significantly higher risk of being killed by an ex-partner than a current one. Abuse frequently escalates after a breakup, manifesting in increased violence, threats, stalking, and harassment. Almost 60% of police-reported dating violence occurs after the relationship has ended. Post-separation abuse is alarmingly common, with abusers employing various tactics to maintain control, including financial manipulation and ongoing emotional abuse. Abusers often use coercive control tactics to prevent victims from leaving or to force their return, such as threats of self-harm or harm to loved ones. The psychological impact of abuse, including conditions like PTSD, can make it more challenging for victims to leave and stay away. Abusers may also exploit societal expectations and systemic barriers to further control and harass their victims. Understanding these complex dynamics is crucial for providing appropriate support to victims and implementing effective interventions to break the cycle of abuse. It's essential to recognize that leaving an abusive relationship is a process that often requires ongoing support and protection. Maple's relationship with Gary reached a critical point in late September at a Surrey Tim Hortons. On September 24th, just before 5 a.m., Maple met a male friend, Milu Dillon, for coffee. As they sat at a table near the door, Gary, likely stalking Maple, spotted her car and entered the restaurant. The situation quickly escalated to violence. While Maple tried to calm Gary, he assaulted Milu. Maple attempted to defuse the situation by explaining her friendship and accompanying Gary outside to his SUV. Gary grabbed Maple's phone, demanding access to her messages and other communications before refusing to return it to her and leaving with it. The next morning, Gary called Milu Dillon and told him to stay away from Maple. Having had enough and now thoroughly terrified, Maple finally went to the police to report the incident. In an RCMP interview room, Maple told the investigating officer that Gary had hit Milu in the face and she'd gone outside with Gary to calm the situation. Quote, "He was yelling at me. What are you doing? Do you like this guy? And he finally just pushed me," Maple said. "So I was really like shaking and was really scared," end quote. She also let police know that she was sure Gary had been following her, even while out with her mom walking the dog. Maple filed a no-contact order against Gary Dhaliwal. Maple's family were now aware of Gary Dhaliwal's abusive behavior and were glad she'd gone to the police. Just 4 days later, Maple Batalia would be dead. More after a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
And we are back. Matthew, thoughts?
So, my husband and I celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary on Canada Day this year.
Yep.
We've been together 20 years. And
happy anniversary.
Thank you. Belated. Yay. But we had a conversation once and disagreed if either of us had ever physically hit each other, literally, there would be no other chances it would be over.
Yeah.
Because we're like, we never would, but we're just saying when that happens, it's just like if you feel like you can hit your partner, there's just nothing left instantly for both of us. And maybe that's why neither of us have never been in an abusive relationship, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And It's so sad to me, so sad that she wasn't able to walk away from this relationship much earlier.
Yeah.
Like if she had that rule as well, like, right? Because if one small thing happens like that, once you walk away, it's probably a bit safer than when it keeps going down that path and gets longer, right? And it's just like incrementalism. And this poor woman, you know, she just got sucked into.
She wasn't even really a grown woman when she ends up with him. They were both children. I mean, he continued to behave like a child the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some pretty childish things when I was younger, too.
She was young, but she's a young woman, right? And just sort of this incrementalism of getting sucked in by a DB like this, right?
Yeah.
And somebody who'd so much going for her, and we see this so often, and, you know, and it's just...
He was probably her first boyfriend.
Yeah. And
if you really think about it.
And I just wonder, like, can you educate people on this? Or is it one of those things where it just will always be, right?
Well, I don't get into it in the script, but after all of this works itself out in the courts, people involved in the case go around and talk to teens about abusive relationships now.
Great. Like, it's both ways. Teach boys that might be on the edge of being like this because of whatever happened in their lives, that it's not okay.
Yeah.
And then, and teach girls, and vice versa, you know, it could happen the other way around, and teach girls to bloody walk away fast as well.
Yep.
Both. And if everyone somehow can get educated or take some responsibility, maybe this can stop, because domestic or partner abuse just is so upsetting.
In the later summer of 2011, despite her troubles with Gary Dhaliwal, Maple was excited about the progress she was making in her modeling career. She had just been named a finalist in the Central City Model Search and was preparing to attend auditions in Alberta. She also had lots to do at school. On the evening of September 27th and the early morning of September 28th, Maple Batalia's movements before her murder were meticulously documented through surveillance video recordings, eyewitness accounts, and cell site information, shedding light on the tragic events that unfolded. At 6:29 p.m. on September 27th, Maple Batalia was first seen on video surveillance getting off an elevator on the 5th floor of the mezzanine building at the SVU Surrey campus. This area, often called the Galleria, contains study areas and classrooms. By 7:10 p.m., she was captured on video sitting at a study table on the same floor with a friend engaged in her studies. Between 7:32 and 7:35 p.m., Maple's sister, Rosaline, arrived at the campus. The video shows Maple exchanging vehicles with Rosaline before returning to the 5th floor. This exchange left Maple with a red Ford Escort, which she parked in one of the stalls in the open parking lot area. Around 10 p.m., Maple and a friend were recorded leaving the main entrance and taking an elevator down to a Tim Hortons on a lower level in the covered parkade. After spending some time at the Tim Hortons, they returned to SFU via the same route. The critical moments leading up to the tragic event were captured on video. At 1:03 a.m. on September 28th, Maple, Milou Dillon, and 2 other students were on camera leaving a study room on the 5th floor. By 1:07 a.m., they exited the main entrance into the open parking lot. The taillights of a vehicle, later identified as a new white 2011 Dodge Charger, were observed in the lot. As Maple and Milou parted ways with a hug, Maple walked towards her vehicle, while Milou Dillon and his friends walked away from the entrance doors. Just at the crucial moment before Maple's attack, the surveillance camera panned away to another part of the lot and did not capture the events that led to Maple's death.
Well, we know this guy got caught in the end, but that would have been highly frustrating for investigators.
It had to be. It's like you're watching and it's like, oh my gosh, here's this.
Just before, it's like, oh, that moment where we could have had somebody nailed easily, instantly, right?
On video.
And it pans away.
Yeah.
Milou Dillon heard the shots and looked over his shoulder to see the white Charger pulled up behind Maple's vehicle. There were sparks in the air. In a state of panic, he and his friends ran toward the parkade for safety. Video recordings captured 3 people identified by investigators as Milou and the 2 other students running across the screen outside the entrance doors, away from the direction they'd originally gone after leaving the building with Maple. Milu hid behind some cars and called 911. Others nearby also called 911, claiming to have heard shots. A group of young students at SFU witnessed the disturbing incident from the 4th and 5th floors overlooking the open parking lot. After hearing gunshots, they observed the Charger parked perpendicular to what was later identified as Maple's car, with its driver's side closest to her vehicle. The witnesses later saw a young male exit the Charger, approach Maple's car, and then interact with something on the ground before returning to the Charger and speeding away toward the exit ramps. The something he was interacting with was Maple Batalia. Notably, one witness was certain that only one person occupied the Charger during this incident. The distinctive rear lights of the Charger were a key detail noticed by the observers. RCMP Corporal Daniel Johnson was the first officer on scene at 1:12 a.m. He described finding Maple on the ground covered with and surrounded by blood. He observed that she appeared to have been both stabbed and shot, but she still had a pulse. Maple attempted to communicate with him, but her severe injuries and the amount of blood prevented her from articulating anything comprehensible. Johnson reassured her, promising to use his training and abilities to save her life. Maple had been shot 3 times. Then, while she was lying face down, her attacker had slashed her head 11 times with a knife.
What do they say? Cowards are the most dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
The brutality in this is just horrifying.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that, you know, when somebody does that, there's no way that it's some sort of manslaughter thing, right? It's like you planned it and you just kept going, you loser, right?
Yeah.
Maple was rushed by ambulance across the Patullo Bridge to Royal Columbian Hospital, one of the region's premier trauma-receiving hospitals. Her family heard that she'd been hurt, and it took some time to figure out where she was, but once they knew, they rushed to New West to be as close to Maple as they could. At first, they thought she would be okay and were in deep shock when they were told that Maple had succumbed to her wounds. Sergeant Tyner Gillies of the RCMP was present when Maple's family was informed of her death. He recounted a poignant moment with Maple's mother who, in her grief, pulled him close and demanded vengeance. The brutal nature of the crime led investigators to suspect a personal motive. They quickly focused their attention on Dhaliwal as a potential suspect. However, gathering sufficient evidence to tie him to the murder conclusively was another matter. Rosaline called Gary after the attack. She asked him why he'd hurt Maple. His response, she said, was robotic. He asked, "Why would I hurt Maple?" and claimed he was at home playing video games at the time. Rosaline didn't believe him. According to Global News, 800 mourners gathered at Delta's Riverside funeral home trying to make sense of Maple's tragic murder. Maple's family wanted the killer caught. Maple's sister Rosaline spoke out in a December 2011 National Post article. By that time, 50 officers had been assigned to solve her case. Rosaline said, quote, "My parents and I can't find any peace. We are zombies. Maple's killer is out there breathing fresh air. He's not going to confess. Why the hell would he do that? The police are doing their job, but people are scared, and without the community's help, what are the police supposed to do? Their hands are tied until people speak up. We need an eyewitness." The article concludes, "Everything I do in life now is dedicated to Maple," Rosaline said. "This wasn't just our loss, it was the community's loss. My sister died unjustly. She died unrightfully. It shows you that violence has a new face, and that face is the face of innocence. That face is my sister." End quote. The police were working hard. On the morning of the attack, I-Hit RCMP Sergeant Kevin Jeffrey found the knife used to attack Maple lying on the pavement of the parking lot just a short distance from her car. The knife was too bloodied to provide fingerprints or useful DNA other than Maple's. They had to figure out who the car belonged to. Due to its distinctive taillights, investigators determined that the vehicle was a Dodge Charger, and there are plenty of Chargers in Surrey. I remember that it was the cool go-to car for young men there. From ICBC, the RCMP requested information on all the white Dodge Chargers registered in BC from that year. One of the cars was traced back to Avis Rental Cars and had been rented just days earlier by 22-year-old Gursimar Gary Bedi, a friend of Gary Dhaliwal's. The car had already been returned and was just about to be cleaned when authorities rushed to seize the vehicle. They found a 9mm shell casing in the undercarriage of the hood that matched those found at the crime scene, recovered 2 small spots of blood that matched Maple, and found gunshot residue on the steering wheel, confirming the car had been used in the crime. There was also evidence that Gary had obtained a 9mm pistol in the days before Maple's death, but the gun was never found. More damaging evidence is surveillance footage showing Dhaliwal with Bedi at the car rental office when Bedi rented the car. Investigators still needed more, however, to determine who exactly pulled the trigger. Based on forensic evidence, they determined the killer had been in the driver's seat. Surveillance footage showed Bedi getting out of the passenger side of the vehicle and entering a campus building hours before the shooting. He was also seen following Dylan, who had been with Maple just minutes before her death. After months of waiting, investigators finally got their hands on cell phone records, which placed Dhaliwal at the scene and showed his phone traveling away from the campus just after the murder. It was enough to arrest both men, but investigators still hoped for a confession. Cops poured through over 700 hours of surveillance video from the university and surrounding businesses to try and catch a solid glimpse of Maple's killer or killers. The definitive connection to Dhaliwal and the Charger came from a McDonald's drive-thru on Fraser Highway. At 6:30 p.m. on September 27, 2011, Dhaliwal was seen driving a white 2011 Dodge Charger through a McDonald's drive-thru on Fraser Highway. An employee who recognized Dhaliwal from high school identified him and noted that he had an Asian male passenger with him at the time. The Charger was observed leaving the covered parkade at 7:02 p.m. and driving around the campus area, making 2 passes by the campus entrance before exiting onto adjacent streets at 7:12 p.m. At 8:12 p.m., Gursimar Bedi was recorded entering the SFU building with a cell phone to his ear and carrying a laptop bag. This was confirmed by the video footage and a brief interaction with Mariam Khan, who knew Bedi from high school and had not seen him at SFU before. Over the next hour, Bedi was seen moving between the 3rd and 4th floors of the mezzanine building, watching Maple and frequently using his phone. He was calling Gary Dhaliwal. He left the building at 8:59 p.m., and at 9:01 p.m., the Charger stopped at the SFU entrance where Bedi was seen moving towards it before it drove away. Cell phone records corroborated these movements. Between 8:13 p.m. and 8:59 p.m., there were 5 calls between Dhaliwal's and Bedi's phones. During these calls, the cell site data indicated that their phones were within the SFU area. Later that night, just after 1 a.m. on September 28th, as we mentioned, Maple Batalia, Mooley Dillon, and 2 other students were seen on camera leaving a study room and heading towards the open parking lot. Mooley noticed the white Charger parked across from Maple's vehicle. After a brief hug with Maple, Mooley and his friends walked away while Maple walked towards her car. Police presumed it was at this point. Enraged by witnessing the hug, Gary Dhaliwal pulled the Charger forward, got out, and fired 5 shots at Maple Batalia, hitting her 3 times. He then used a knife to slash her head before driving away, leaving the knife at the scene. The cell site evidence for this period showed that Dhaliwal's Rogers phone accessed a cell site within the SFU area at 10:40 p.m. and again at 12:41 a.m. His Koa Mock phone also accessed a site covering SFU at 12:55 a.m. Bedi's phone was used extensively during this period, receiving multiple texts and calls from his father's phone and accessing the SFU area cell site. The following morning, on September 28th, Bedi's behavior raised suspicions. He went to work but appeared unfocused and distraught, leading his foreman to send him home around noon. That morning, Gursimar Bedi texted Gary Dhaliwal's phone, telling him to move his Pathfinder from his residence. Later, Bedi texted Dhaliwal that investigators were at his house, advising him to be cautious. Dhaliwal kept the Charger until later on September 28th, using it to evade immediate capture after the murder. At 3:09 p.m., Bedi returned the Charger to the Avis rental office after stopping to fill the gas tank and wash the car. He chose a gas station 18 blocks away despite passing 3 closer stations, including one with a visible car wash. The combination of video footage, cell site evidence, and text messages provided a detailed account of the movements and interactions of Bedi and Dhaliwal on the night of September 27th and the early morning of September 28th, indicating their coordinated actions before and after the murder of Maple Batalia. On November 30th, 2012, Gary Dhaliwal was finally arrested after a year-long complex investigation and meticulous evidence gathering. Despite hours of interrogation, Gary was not talking. According to Oxygen, Maple's mom, Sarbyet, finally got to Dhaliwal. Sarbyet agreed to speak with Dhaliwal over the phone, asking him to, quote, "Please tell me the truth, son," end quote. She reassured him that she didn't want any harm to come to him, but expressed her deep longing to know what happened as she missed her daughter. Sarbyet said, quote, "We are humans. Whatever mistakes we make, God still forgives us. You are my son. I forgive you." End quote. Dhaliwal began to cry and quietly said, "I'm very sorry." While it wasn't a full confession, this admission was enough for prosecutors to proceed with their case. Gary Dhaliwal was charged with Maple's murder. He pleaded not guilty and his trial was pending. Gursimar Bedi was charged as an accessory as he'd acted as Gary's eyes and ears on the night of Maple's killing. He informed Gary Dhaliwal about police presence at his house, provided Gary with information about the investigation, and initiated discussions with Gary about getting their stories straight. This was later seen via text messages by the police and the Crown. Bedi was found guilty on January 27, 2017, and sentenced to 22 months in prison for his role. He was released in 2018, 6 months early. Maple's family was disgusted. Roslyn Batalia told CTV News, quote, "That 18-month sentence was a slap in my family's face. He had the audacity to stay quiet even when the sentencing happened. He smirked at our family. He smirked at the people there in a way to imply that I got away with this," end quote.
Yeah, that's completely outrageous.
It's gross.
How can, this scumbag is walking the streets after 18 months?
Mm-hmm. Gurjinder Gary Dhaliwal was set up to go to trial in 2016, but on March 3rd of that year, he unexpectedly pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in killing Maple, sending shockwaves through the courtroom. The subsequent sentencing hearing, 4 days later, was an emotionally charged event with Maple's family and friends delivering heart-wrenching victim impact statements. Maple's mom, Sarbyet, gave her statement through an interpreter. She said, quote, "My life is aimless and the nights are long. My life feels like a burden. All the color is lost. I have lost my taste for everything. Whenever I do something, I remember how my daughter looked in her coffin. I wish someone had killed me instead of her. It would have been much better than this." End quote. Her father, Harry Batalia, described Maple as an angel and struggled to comprehend the senselessness of the crime. Friends and family painted a picture of Maple as an intelligent, warm, and kind individual whose absence left an irreplaceable void in their lives. The courtroom was filled with tears and sobs as multiple statements were read, highlighting the far-reaching impact of Maple's death. The court heard about Dhaliwal's escalating jealousy and controlling behavior, which culminated in murder after Maple ended their relationship due to his repeated infidelity. For his crime, Gary Dhaliwal was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 21 years. For his crime, Dhaliwal was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 21 years.
Enjoy your little life in a little cell, you little man.
Yeah. Yep.
Outside the court, Maple's sister, Roslyn, expressed a sense of closure, stating that Maple could finally rest in peace knowing she'd received some justice. Maple Batalia's tragic story serves as a harrowing reminder of the devastating consequences of intimate partner domestic violence. As a bright, ambitious young woman with dreams of becoming a doctor, Maple's life was brutally cut short by an act of violence that underscores the pervasive and often overlooked threat of intimate partner abuse. Her story is a call to action for society to recognize, address, and prevent domestic violence in all its forms. Maple's journey, marked by her dedication to education and her passion for the arts, exemplifies the potential and promise that many young people hold. However, it also highlights the vulnerability that exists when abusive relationships go unchecked. Despite her aspirations and achievements, Maple became a victim of a partner who refused to let go, demonstrating how domestic violence can infiltrate and destroy lives regardless of one's background or accomplishments. Her story starkly illustrates how love and obsession can become dangerously intertwined, leading to fatal consequences. One of the critical lessons from Maple's story is the importance of early intervention and support systems. Friends, family, educators, and community members play crucial roles in recognizing the signs of domestic abuse and providing the necessary support to those in danger. Maple's tragic end might have been prevented if there had been more awareness and proactive measures to address the warning signs of her abusive relationship. It is imperative to foster environments where individuals feel safe to speak out and seek help without fear of judgment or retaliation. Moreover, Maple's story underscores the need for systemic changes in how society deals with domestic violence. Legal systems, healthcare providers, and social services must work collaboratively to offer comprehensive protection and support for victims. This includes legal recourse and access to counseling, safe housing, and financial assistance. Ensuring that victims have the resources to escape abusive situations and rebuild their lives is essential in preventing tragedies like Maple's from recurring. In remembering Maple Batalia, we honor her legacy by committing to action. Her story is a poignant reminder that domestic violence is not just a personal issue but a societal one that requires collective responsibility. By raising awareness, providing support, and implementing effective policies, we can work toward a future where no one else has to suffer the same fate. Maple's life, though tragically short, can inspire change and encourage us all to take a stand against intimate partner domestic violence. Since Maple's death, several documentaries have been made, art projects undertaken, and scholarships set up in her name. You can learn more about those in our show notes. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 327, Hopes Crushed, The Murder of Maple Batalia.
That's right, it's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
We had our caller from Florida call us back.
Sarah from Florida.
Sarah from Florida called us back.
The sound was bad. Call back again, please.
But anyway, she was super happy that the Panthers won the Stanley Cup.
Is that ice hockey?
That is ice hockey, and they beat the Edmonton Oilers, although it was a squeaker up until the last game. The last game, Panthers just outplayed the Oilers. But, you know, it was bittersweet for everybody because my favorite goalie, who used to play for the Vancouver Canucks, Roberto Luongo, works in the Panthers organization, and now he gets his name on the Stanley Cup because... You know, so I got to see Roberto Luongo eating pasta out of the Stanley Cup. It was really funny. But yeah, so Sarah called back, and she's also the person who called us to say, why did you remove schmucks? Well, from the intro, calling us a couple of Canadian
I heard her
schmucks.
say that. She said she's happy that it's back.
Yeah, she's happy that it's back. So thank you so much, Sarah, and we're glad that that we're able to come to terms with that term, schmucks.
Maybe the sound is bad because the phone lines were busy because her ice hockey team won.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, okay.
Who knows? Who knows? All right, here's another voicemail.
Hi there, it's Karen from Abbotsford, BC. Just listening to your podcast from the 2014 shootings at the sawmill, and it got mentioning the mental health side of things. And one of the stories it reminded me of is the guard that was that had shot himself after he shot his wife and his mother-in-law in the hospital. He went and hid out in the hollowed-out tree at Stave Lake and took his own life. Anyway, it's another story that hits close to home for me because it's my neighborhood. But anyway, maybe it's something you'd like to look up. Don't forget to go shit in your
Thanks, Karen. We'll look that up.
So Karen's in Abbotsford. What do you think she does there in Abbotsford, Matthew?
Well, since that's where you're located, doesn't she help
I'm not in Abbotsford. I'm in Langley.
We've had a lot of callers from Abbotsford lately, actually.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, she stands at the edge of the city, says this is not Langley with a sign.
Oh, yeah. Mike lives in Langley.
Mike lives in Langley.
It's
turn
for
around.
You, and it's just for you. You're the only person that needs to see that song. Because you're the only person who ever visits me. Actually, you and Wes.
Yeah, Wes
our buddy you. Wes, he visits. But I have no life. I'm a hermit, and I have no friends.
But Abbotsford, both Langley and Abbotsford are nice.
They really are, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're sort of, Abbotsford's a little bit further out there.
Mm-hmm.
But, Abbotsford, I'm going to guess it's like almost halfway to the whack from Vancouver.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. It's nice.
That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome.
All right, it's time for Donut Money donors and patrons. We don't have any new patrons, but we do have a Donut Money donor. And his name is James Hammerston. And James says, This is for making the trips between Prince George, Quesnel, Williams Lake, Ashcroft, and Vancouver go by in a heartbeat. Wow. So I would hazard to guess that James might be a truck driver of some description?
No. Hammerstein. He's
Hammerston. Not. There's no Stein. It's Stun.
Hammerstun. He's a death metal band singer.
Oh, so he's just like hitting up all the bars and singing like,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, James. That's awesome.
Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors, past and present, for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing.
And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
We love you all.
Okay, bye.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Being in a Big Brother house is like a dream come true for me.
Mics, cameras,
competition.
Are you ready to play Big Brother?
Let's go. Are you ready?
This is big.
For a big summer.
Oh my God, I'm in love.
You lied to my face.
We're coming for you.
I'm gonna burn this sucker to the ground.
What a game.
Expect the unexpected.
What a game.
Big Brother. All new Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays on Global. Stream on Stack TV.